All right, chapter 7, Behind the Bedroom Wall. Early the next morning, Corinna sat at her desk, her small black book open in front of her. Biting the end of her pencil, Corinna tried to decide what to write. The last entry she'd made had been about Fraulein Meiser. Now her teacher was gone. How could she turn in her parents? Yet she knew she must. For the fatherland, for the Third Reich. She wrote, "My parents are the enemy." It was only 5 words, but she knew it would be enough to interest her Humago leaders. Perhaps she would tell them tomorrow, or at least by the next day. The longer she waited, the more she felt like a traitor herself. Slowly, she closed the black notebook and tucked it under her pillow. As she picked up her book bag next to the wardrobe, she noticed a folded piece of paper. Picking it up, she immediately realized it was one of Rachel's drawings. Thinking it had somehow dropped outside the wardrobe when it had been opened, Corinna was about to throw the paper away when she noticed her own name, misspelled, written on the front. She unfolded the paper. Rachel had drawn a picture of the kitten with the sun shining above her head. Only one word was written on the inside, Danke. Corinna frowned. She didn't want any Jews to thank her. Angrily, she ripped the drawing into shreds and threw them at her garbage pail next to her desk. Then she raced downstairs. Thinking about her black book, Corinna had a hard time looking her mother in the eyes as Frau Rehm insisted that Corinna attend the meeting that afternoon. "You haven't gone since you learned of the Krugmans," her mother argued. "The officers will get suspicious, especially since they're meeting every day now because of the Fuhrer's visit." "No, they won't." Rita explained to them that I'm still sick. "Then why are you going to school each day?" her mother asked. Corinna shifted her heavy book bag on her shoulder. "I get sicker in the afternoon." Frau Rehm shook her head. "I think you should go," she said sternly, kissing her daughter goodbye. "Maybe," Corinna said, closing the front door behind her. Rita met her and they walked to school together as usual. "Are you coming to the meeting today?" Rita asked. "It depends on how I feel." Rita tugged on the strap of her book bag. "You can't be that sick. You sound fine." Corinna glanced nervously at her best friend. "Don't worry, I'll probably go to the meeting." "Good, because today we're going to practice the new song for the Fuhrer's visit." "That sounds like fun." "Rita, I, I have to tell you something, but you have to promise not to tell anyone." Rita looked at Corinna obliquely and nodded. Corinna hesitated. All night she'd been debating this question. Should she say something about the Krugmans to her very best friend? They were supposed to share everything. They were supposed to share everything, she had argued with herself. "Do you promise not to say anything, not even to Eva?" "I said I promised," Rita said irritably. "Now tell me." Corinna hesitated for a moment. I think I have a crush on Alfred," she blurted out. Rita stopped walking and confronted her friend. "Are you kidding? That's your big secret? You've had a crush on Alfred for years. What were you really going to tell me?" she asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "That's it," Corinna said cheerfully, continuing to walk toward the school. "I mean, I really, really like him. Not just a baby crush. I mean, really." Rita skipped to catch up to her friend. "You are lying to me, Corinna. You can't fool me. I've known you too long for that." They entered the school. "There's Eva. I have to ask her something," Corinna called as she hurried down the hall, leaving Rita staring after her. After school, before Rita had a chance to ask Corinna about that morning, a group of young children raced toward them. "Jew, Jew, I spit on you," taunted a group of older boys who chased the young children down the sidewalk. The throng scrambled around and through Corinna and Rita, who were on their way to eat dinner at Rita's house before going to the Humano meeting. Corinna didn't think the 7 and 8-year-olds who raced frantically past her looked all that Jewish. In fact, one of them had pale golden hair, not the thick black hair that she usually associated with Jews, but the yellow stars they were forced to wear gave them away. Rita grinned. "Come on, Corinna. You want to chase those little kids? Sure, why not? They should all be sent where they won't disturb anyone. They shouldn't be wandering around these streets bothering us good, loyal Germans." "I feel stupid running after a bunch of children," Corinna said, hoping Rita would change her mind. "Do you feel stupid fighting for Germany?" Rita demanded. "I would do anything for our fatherland," Corinna said indignantly. "You know that, Rita." "Then come on. We have to let those dirty little Jews know they're not wanted here. Remember, they're the enemy." "But they're practically babies." Rita's eyes narrowed. "Now you're beginning to sound like Eva." Corinna looked hard at her best friend. "Okay, let's go. But we'll have to hurry to catch up." She started to run after the now distant group of children. She could hear Rita panting behind her. They finally caught up, not because they were incredible sprinters, but because one of the Jewish children had slipped on some ice and now sat on the cold ground crying. Her Jewish friends huddled behind her, loyally sticking with her, though they all looked as if they'd rather run and hide. They were surrounded by the sneering bunch of older boys when Corinna and Rita came upon them. Jew, Jew, I spit on you, the boys chanted. And then they all spit on the group of youngsters in the center. Jew, Jew, I spit on you, Rita joined the taunting jeer. Corinna watched, her mouth suddenly dry. Finally, one of the boys grew tired of spitting, so he picked up a ball of snow and threw it. It landed squarely on the fallen girl's cheek. When the snow fell away, Corinna could see that there had been ice mixed in with the snow and that had cut the little girl's face. Blood oozed from the little scrapes and mingled with the girl's tears and the melted snow. Rita reached down and scooped up a handful of snow, patting it into a firm ball. Others were doing the same. She offered the snowball to her friend. Throw it, Rita urged. Corinna took the cold ball into her hand. It was heavy with ice. She looked at the group of children in the center of the crowd. They were Jews. They were the enemy. And for the fatherland to thrive, all enemies had to be put down. For the fatherland, Corinna said under her breath, and she let the missile fly. She had good aim. She hit the little girl in the shoulder. The girl gave a sharp cry and lifted a hand to ward off further blows. For the fatherland, Corinna reminded herself firmly as she watched the tears continue to roll down the girl's face. For the fatherland. Let's go, Corinna said, pulling on Rita's sleeve. Rita was still chanting. Corinna pulled harder. Come on, we'll be late for dinner and our meeting. Reluctantly, Rita allowed herself to be led away from the growing group of chanters. It was quite a few blocks before Corinna couldn't hear the mocking refrain anymore, and still she couldn't get the little girl's expression out of her mind. I think we taught those dirty Jews a lesson, Rita said. Did you see that girl's face when she was hit with that first snowball? Rita giggled. Maybe they'll stay where they belong instead of walking around like they have rights or something. Corinna only nodded. They walked on in silence. For the fatherland, she kept telling herself, for the beloved fatherland. Later, during the meeting, Fraulein Schwanwald taught the girls the new song, and they practiced it for the rest of the afternoon. At the end of the meeting, all the girls formed a semicircle around the striking red, white, and black National Socialist flag, while one of the Humado leaders regaled them with yet another story about their wonderful Führer. At the end of the lively speech, everyone raised her right arm to a 45-degree angle and shouted, Heil Hitler! The sudden shout startled Corinna out of her thoughts. Heil Hitler, she said hastily, her voice trailing well behind the others. Corinna, called an angry voice, come here. Corinna walked over to the leader, who stared furiously down her long nose. You have missed 2 meetings, Fraulein, and now you show your disrespect by failing to salute the flag properly. But silence! You have not been told to speak, commanded the leader. No, but suddenly a flash of heat stung her face as the leader slapped her hard across the cheek. The force of the blow jolted Corinna's head to the side. Immediately, tears sprang into her eyes. I'll be watching you, Corinna Ream, warned the leader tersely. Corinna didn't wait to hear more. She turned and fled, grabbing her bag and coat on the way out of the silent room. All right, it's into the chapter. It's your turn. Send me your answers. 1, what are your thoughts on the German youth actions towards the young Jewish children? 2, why do you think Corinna hesitates to treat the Jewish children meanly? And 3, what are your thoughts on how the leader treated Corinna at the end of the meeting?